Call me crazy, but somehow, someway, I am more excited for this weekend's rematch between the Steelers and the Jaguars than I have been for any other game this season. This is, at its core, a very compelling battle for legitimacy. The Steelers want to prove that their blowout loss to Jacksonville in Week 5 was a fluke and a one-time misstep, while the Jaguars are out to prove that David really can kill Goliath twice. It's a fascinating matchup between old money and new money in the AFC, and it's representative as a whole of the changing of the guard across the entire NFL. These teams are very evenly matched to me in a number of ways, but maybe not in the ways that you would expect. The Steelers are a big play offense through and through. With how much athleticism they have all over the field, even a simple screen pass or a crack toss could be a 40-yard gain in the blink of an eye. They have so much speed at the skill positions and so much creativity in their play calling that it's almost impossible for defenses to keep up with them for 4 straight quarters. That is, unless you're the Jacksonville Jaguars. Pittsburgh may be a fast, aggressive offense, but the Jags are an even faster, even more aggressive defense that turns big plays from their opponent into big plays for themselves. They've got 2 elite corners, one of the fastest linebacking cores in the league, and a front 4 that can give any offensive line problems. From top to bottom, they are built to take away the big play, which is why that Week 5 blowout was such an interesting game to study for me. Even though the Jaguars matched up very well stylistically with the Steelers' offense, and even though the box score showed Pittsburgh's lowest point total of the season, I still felt that the Steelers really did not have that much trouble moving the ball. Sure, they didn't have as many back-breaking big plays as you might normally expect, but they were not outright shut down either. Pittsburgh had 12 total drives on offense in this game, or rather 11 quote-unquote real drives if we eliminate their last possession of the game, which was just backups running out the clock. On those 11 drives, they averaged 31.8 yards per drive, which while slightly below their usual output, was still in the top 12 in the NFL and above the Jaguars' own season average, and that's including all 5 of their drives that ended in turnovers. On the 6 drives that did not end in interceptions, the Steelers averaged 38.8 yards per drive. Keep in mind that the Jaguars' defense averaged giving up the fewest yards per drive in the entire league at just 22.9, and yet the Steelers turned the ball over 5 times and still had very good numbers against them. Pittsburgh's game plan actually reminded me a lot of the 49ers' game plan with Jimmy Garoppolo a few weeks ago, in that the Steelers threw a lot of quick passes and a lot of checkdowns underneath against Jacksonville's soft cover 3 zones. After all, as I've said many times before on this show, the easiest way to beat a cover 3 is to dink and dunk your way down the field and win with body blows rather than knockout shots, and that's exactly the approach they took. The Steelers did not take too many big chances while the game was still close, because usually against the Jags defense, big chances turn into big mistakes, and big mistakes turn into 2-possession deficits, and the absolute last team you want to be behind by double digits is the Jaguars when they start to get Leonard Fournette rolling downhill. Ironically enough, the Steelers actually had a lead well into the 3rd quarter, but for one reason or another, Ben threw back-to-back pick sixes, and next thing you know, they're in a huge hole and playing right into Jacksonville's hand. It was pretty much game over from there. On the next drive after those pick sixes, the Jags got a 3rd down sack from Dante Fowler, and Bortles never passed the ball for the rest of the game. Not even once. There was still over 8 minutes left in the 3rd quarter the last time Bortles attempted a pass. That's how one-dimensional the play calling became once they got a lead. They were doing everything they could to not have Blake Bortles be a part of that game, and it worked. 27 of Jacksonville's 30 points came off of Big Ben's 5 interceptions, meaning that their point production was just as reliant on Roethlisberger as Pittsburgh's was. Without a pass getting deflected at the line straight to Telvin Smith for a pick 6, or Juju Smith-Schuster tripping on his route for another interception, or Antonio Brown getting dragged down by Jalen Ramsey and the referee somehow not seeing it at all, who knows just how many scoring chances the Steelers would have gotten? And hell, who knows just how many points the Jaguars would have gotten? Most of Jacksonville's scoring opportunities were generated directly by the defense anyway, so without some of those, dare I say, random circumstances, it's tough to imagine that the results would have been the same. In fact, the only results that I think the Jaguars can be reasonably confident at all in reproducing again is the performances they got out of their 2 starting corners, Jalen Ramsey and AJ Bouye. Both of them had excellent games against Antonio Brown, and even though he had 10 catches on a whopping 19 targets, only 3 of those catches came against either Ramsey or Bouye in man coverage. Additionally, on Brown's 19 targets, Ramsey and Bouye alone accounted for or assisted in 3 pass breakups, 2 interceptions, and a defensive touchdown. So technically, you could say that the Jaguars got more production out of passes to Brown than the Steelers did. And speaking of Ramsey, I do want to take a moment to highlight his assist in Barry Church's pick 6, just to give some context for how freakishly impactful he really is. This was 3rd and 17 with about 4 minutes to go in the third quarter. Roethlisberger had just thrown another pick 6 to Telvin Smith on the previous drive, and he was looking to make a big play and get back control of this game. Like I said earlier, trying to make a big play downfield against this secondary is usually a pretty terrible idea, but Ben hadn't really found out for himself yet why it was a terrible idea. If anything, this play was a pretty good educational opportunity for that. The Steelers need to get to the Jaguars' 49-yard line here to get a first down. The Jags are showing double-A gap pressure, so Ben has a 7-man protection dialed up to give him some time to get this ball off. Ramsey is about 10 yards off in man coverage on Brown, while Boye is about 7 yards off Martavis Bryant on the other side. After the snap, the Jags actually bail out of their pressure look, but that doesn't really worry Ben too much because he's going to Antonio on the post route no matter what. He's holding the free safety, Tayshaun Gibson, to the middle with his eyes and trusting that Brown will be able to get some separation from Ramsey on his stem and settle into that soft spot to move the chains. If you watched my episode on Roethlisberger and Brown a few weeks ago, you would know that they converted long yardage situations on throws just like this one more times than I can count. It's kind of their bread and butter, really. So here's how Brown tried to beat Ramsey on this route. He's releasing hard off the line, there's no wasted movement, and he's eating up that cushion as fast as humanly possible. The harder he sells that go route, theoretically the more it backs Ramsey off in his pedal so that Brown can get easy separation underneath him on the post route. However, as Brown sells it even further with a little nod to the outside, Ramsey doesn't do anything. He's staying in his pedal, not panicking, not flipping early, or biting on the first little nod or shimmy he sees. He knows that Antonio is going to use every little trick he can to back him off of his spot, so he's not going anywhere because he knows he doesn't have to. He knows he's a good enough athlete to recover even if he's in kind of a dicey position. As soon as Brown starts rolling inside on the post, that's when Ramsey finally pulls the trigger and lets his athleticism take over. Watch him plant that outside foot, open up his hips inside, and then explode forward to get back on top of this route. Against 99% of all corners in the league, if Antonio Brown crosses their face and gets 2 yards of separation inside, it's over. They're done, they're beat, that's it. But not Ramsey. He is so incredibly explosive that even when Brown is able to roll inside of him and get into that soft spot uncontested, Ramsey has the makeup speed to still get to that spot on time and break up the pass. And luckily for him, as he broke it up, Church was there to catch it on the run and take it all the way back for the pick 6. Very few corners have ever been able to do this, especially against a future first ballot Hall of Famer like Antonio Brown. It's really hard to describe just how rare that kind of explosiveness and makeup speed is. And what's insane is that it wasn't even the first time he did it in the same game. Earlier in the first quarter, Ramsey was playing his deep third zone in a cover 3 look against Vance McDonald, who was running what's called a bang 8 or a skinny post, and he got Roethlisberger once again. Watch Ramsey keep his eyes on Big Ben all the way through this route. McDonald is widening Ramsey out before he breaks slightly back inside into the seam, and that widening is intended to create enough space for this throw to work. They know that Ramsey needs to keep himself in an outside leverage position if he's in a zone defense, so the wider McDonald takes this route, the wider Ramsey has to go, and the wider Ramsey has to go, the more space there is for McDonald to work back inside. And since McDonald will have inside leverage throughout the entirety of the route, it's very hard for Ramsey to then fight back across McDonald's body to make any play on the ball on an inside breaking route. That would be the theory, at least, but when you're dealing with an athlete as gifted as Ramsey, theory tends to go out the window pretty damn quick. As soon as he saw Ben releasing this ball, again he planted the outside foot, opened his hips back inside, and exploded forward to undercut this ball and get a diving interception. I mean, it's like he's got dynamite in his feet. He is so explosive. It's really one-of-a-kind, generational athleticism that we're looking at here, and there's really no answer for it, to be honest. Antonio Brown got him a couple of times because, well, he's Antonio Brown, but sooner or later, no matter who you are, Ramsey will get you back. He's that good. No matter what, he will get you back. The only way to avoid him making a big play at some point is to just avoid him entirely, but that's certainly easier said than done when the corner on the other side of the field is an all-pro as well. That's why, to me, the best way to really move the ball against the Jaguars is to do exactly what the 49ers did and what the Steelers at least attempted to do for a while, and that's focus on the short passing game. Take intermediate and deep shots out of the equation and just land as many body blows as possible. Because if you go for a knockout, chances are that Ramsey or Boye or Gibson or even Telvin Smith is going to knock you out first. As the Steelers go through their tape against the Jaguars this week, and I'm sure they are studying this game very thoroughly, I think they're going to come away from it with two very distinct lessons. Lesson one, obviously, is if you're trying to fit the ball into the seam against Jalen Ramsey, just fucking don't. Throw it literally anywhere else on the field because it's not worth trying. And lesson number two, I think, is that their original game plan from week 5 really did work. Well, I mean, technically it didn't because they lost, but really it kind of did. They were able to move the ball and get themselves into the red zone. They were able to be patient with the run game and churn out tough yards, even though their overall numbers didn't look great. They were able to work the short passing game with screens and checkdowns when the Jags secondary wouldn't give them anything to work with deep downfield. Overall, just looking at pure yards per drive, it kinda worked. Without a couple of those fluky interceptions essentially handing the Jaguars a big lead, I think this game was trending towards a Steelers win. I really do. As soon as Jacksonville's defense got them a 2-possession lead, or more accurately, as soon as Ramsey got them a 2-possession lead, Doug Marrone was able to insulate the team from their own biggest weakness, Blake Bortles. He did not throw a single pass the rest of the game, and as long as Bortles is not throwing any passes, Jacksonville can beat anybody. That's the most important lesson that the Steelers can take away from that game. Do almost exactly the same thing they did before and keep the score close enough for Blake Bortles to still be throwing. Pittsburgh needs the Jags to need Bortles. As harsh as that sounds, it's the truth. As for what I expect to happen, well, I expect that this game is going to look very similar to Week 5, but end very differently. I think the Steelers win by 2 possessions, quite frankly. They barely have to change anything about how they approach this game. They mostly had it right the first time, whereas the Jaguars, again as harsh as this sounds, need to play even better than they did before just to produce comparable results. Overall, I expect the Steelers to work the short passing game again. I expect them to avoid Jalen Ramsey as much as possible whenever they do throw deep balls. I expect Le'Veon Bell to get a minimum of 10 catches again as essentially their main possession receiver, and I'm talking a bare minimum of 10 catches. I expect the Jaguars' run game to have another really good day as well, especially with Ryan Shazier done for the season and Stephon Tuitt getting banged up in practice this week. But without the defense giving them a big lead to work with, I highly doubt that Leonard Fournette and Chris Ivory are going to put up 37 carries again. And on top of that, I highly doubt that Bortles is only going to throw 14 passes again. 5 interception games just do not happen that often, especially when 3 of those interceptions probably should not have been picks in the first place. I don't want to say that the Jags blowing out the Steelers was a fluke, because they did earn that win fair and square. But just looking at how well the Pittsburgh offense performed on tape compared to how most offenses perform against Jacksonville, to me it just seems like a lot of really weird bounces had to go the Jaguars' way for them to win that game. I do think that the Jags are a very good team, and I do think that they have a small chance of somehow pulling this one out, but at the end of the day, both the numbers and the tape are against them. I'm all for a shift in power in the AFC, don't get me wrong, but to shake up that power structure, the Jaguars have to somehow bring down some of the best that the old guard has to offer. And if the 2017 season has taught us anything so far, it's that the old guard are not ready to give up their seats just yet. Thank you so much for watching this week's episode. All of your support throughout this season has been simply incredible. Just going back to look at where we were in August and where we are now, I mean, we've literally doubled in size, and I'm very thankful for all of your support and the support that I've gotten from our season-long sponsor, the BetDSI Sportsbook. You guys have shown them a lot of love, just like you've shown this channel a lot of love, and I am extremely grateful for that. If you are new to the channel this week, we of course still have our promotion going on for all Film Room viewers to get a free $25 in wager credits to use on the BetDSI Sportsbook. You can use that free credit to bet on this weekend's games, and any money you win from those bets is completely yours to keep. You can do whatever you want with your winnings. You do not have to pay anything to sign up if you don't want to. Just use the promo code FILM25, get your free wager credit, and start winning some money. Again, thank you all so much for your support. I'll be back next weekend with some championship game analysis. I'm anticipating that it's going to be the Steelers going up to Foxborough in the AFC and possibly a rematch between the Falcons and Vikings in the NFC. We'll see how it goes. The Saints might sneak in there. Who knows if the Eagles somehow turn it on, but we'll find out. It's playoff football, anything could happen. But I think no matter what, we are in for 2 very good games next week, and I'm excited to see who we get to break down. So I'll be back soon, and until then, later.